Welcome to the Element Wealth Studio, the Speaker of the Mississippi House of Representatives, Jason White. Mr. Speaker, good to have you, sir. Thanks for coming in.
Yes, sir, Gerard. Good to be with you. Good to have this week under our belt.
Yes, sir. It's been quite active. I mean, it's hard enough to conduct business in regular sessions, but you got two special sessions in as many weeks, but for a very good reason. And so I'm just giddy about the announcements over the couple of weeks, and thankful to you and your leadership, of course, the governor, the lieutenant governor, your members, the members of the Senate, who, of course, received great presentations from Mr. Bill Cork at MDA to explain what these projects were all about, the state's investment in these projects and how that would work. And they saw fit to get those things passed rather swiftly. So that's good.
They did. And for the most part, the membership in both chambers was extremely supportive. Now, folks wanted to make their points, political points on whatever their issues that get them up every day, but by and large, there was almost unanimous support. It was good days for Mississippi. It made us kind of look around yesterday afternoon and say, all right, what are we going to do now? We can't fumble this. The governor talks about momentum, but the momentum is real, and it's. You talk about punching above your weight a little bit. Mississippi, 3 million people, we're doing pretty good.
No doubt about it.
And not only punching above our weight, we might have scored a few knockouts. And it truly could, if we can take this and run with it, it could change not only the way our state's perceived, but actually, the bottom line all the way around.
I totally agree. I've shared the story before, just an anecdotal example of this that many folks don't know. The state of Texas was struggling financially back in the early 2000s, 2000, 2001. I was actually a vendor, a contractor to the state of Texas, and they were sending IOUs out and couldn't pay. And it was because they become so reliant on one industry, that being energy. They had too much concentration. And they made a conscious decision to diversify their economy. And now, of course, they're exploding, and they have that Austin-San Antonio corridor, which plays home to more data centers than any other region of the entire nation. But it's transformed the state of Texas. And it took 20 or so years, but that's fine. I think we're on our way to experience the same here.
Look, I think we're on our way. And to your point about Texas, they are so big and so many people. This project can have an even greater impact. Our state is small compared to others, and certainly in population. So I think you get more bang for your buck here in this way. And because we have, we've kind of just been in survival mode, if you will, for a while with decisions and things. And I want to say government, obviously, because I've been involved in some of it as a policymaker, but not just there, but our businesses. We have, for the most part, done our very best to get out of the way everywhere we can and let private business do what private investment and business does. And that is, and I heard Amazon guy last night, we were talking, there was a reception last night to just kind of celebrate the deal going through. And he said, our focus is on growth. And he said, if you see us and we're here on growth, anytime regulatory pulls me over here, like the whole time they're talking to me, I'm trying to get back to growth. Yeah. And he said, if people will stay out of the way, this thing will grow. And we wanted to assure him that Mississippi, we're going to stay out of their way. We want them to, it's kind of like a good offensive lineman. You never get your name called, but that's a good thing. And we don't want anybody to say that government got in the way of our expanding businesses here.
Well, and I know you've heard the feedback as well, as did I last night and prior, from Amazon executives that our state has got an environment which is very conducive and very friendly to business. We want business, we want growth, and we want them to grow and expand and be profitable and successful. That's not the case across the country.
It's not.
As you know, it's not often. I've been talking about this morning, the case out of Washington, certainly from our friends on the left. And it's so, what you just said is so perfectly stated. Just get out of the way. We got this. Don't pretend to be the private sector or that you can more effectively manage the affairs of private businesses. Yep. And they get that about Mississippi.
And it's the less is more, and we've had lots of folks, policymakers who have been focused on that. And so I think I'm selling it as you're seeing a culmination of the last 12 years of Republican leadership in the legislature and in the governor's office leading up to this moment, and it's cool to be part of it. And
totally agree.
You can actually feel it a little bit. It's not just you can look at the facts and the numbers in these two deals, and specifically this deal this week, and just start looking around and feeling pretty good pretty quick. But it's more than that. You kind of start seeing lots of folks are showing up and kicking tires and. Something's going on in Mississippi that's different and cool.
Totally agree.
It's we need to make the best of it and capitalize on it.
I totally agree. Well, and I agree with you as well that it is to a great extent a manifestation of conservative policy that we've had in place now down at the Capitol for about a dozen years, and I think that's paid off in a big way in landing these two projects.
Yeah. I think it has. And I remind folks, the money we've spent on these two projects so far, we have written a check for. We hadn't borrowed any money yet.
Yeah.
And when I took office 12 years ago, we couldn't have said that. We were actually cutting state budgets, just trying to, move the money around. I'm not going to say it was a shell game, but we were moving money around to be sure we were covering some bare bones state budgets. And
so
here
true.
We are with a full bank account.
In fact, the latest reports from DOR, even with our tax cuts, we're still doing pretty good from a revenue perspective.
That's right.
Right. So
we're going to take in almost $1 billion more than we budgeted and spent this past in this current year we're in. Again.
So hopefully we can pivot to that because you guys are going to get back down to business in the general session. More tax reform potentially. You might see some legislation on that. Do you feel?
I think you're going to see it, and particularly just because of the last statement I made. As long as we continue to take in hundreds of millions of dollars more than we're spending. And I feel like we've had some very robust budgets. We were at a joint legislative budget committee meeting a few months ago, and one of the directors said, well, we're going to have agencies come in and give their critical needs. And I was like, how can we have critical needs with the way we've funded these budgets the last few years? And I know there were some specific issues in child protective services and mental health where we may have neglected and obviously found ourselves in some lawsuits. But we have started putting resources toward those things. So I feel like we have fully funded state government and our education system to the point of we're still taking in hundreds of millions of dollars. And folks are always going to be there asking for more and more and more. But we hadn't spent it, and everything has rocked on just fine. We banked it. It's going to cause real conversations about the next step in tax reform.
Okay. Well, that's good news. I mean, when you got a little cushion there, you're a lot more confident in taking some more bold steps.
That's right.
To start to reduce the tax burden on Mississippians. Contrast that, by the way, to the state of California, as I'm sure you're aware, has got a $68 billion deficit they're trying to deal with.
That's right.
And they're still passing laws to spend more money.
I was going to say they're still passing laws to spend more monny and raise more taxes. It just keeps coming back around. We think if we let people keep more of their money, it levels all playing fields. They're more apt to invest it and hopefully save it and be in a better financial position when they want to expand their business or open their own business or whatever it is they want to do.
Yeah.
We want them to see Mississippi as truly a partner in a place where they can raise their family and grow their business.
So the discussion comes up quite a bit, as you know, Mr. Speaker, about possibly reducing or eliminating the sales tax on groceries. Might we see a bill on that?
I would say that my leadership team in the House has not been as focused on eliminating the grocery tax as we have been on eliminating the personal income tax. Now, the Lieutenant Governor has indicated that is something he is kind of laser focused on. So I'm sure you'll see discussions centered around, is that an and/or thing? Is there a way for a combination, of those things? At the same time, we would like to figure out from our sales tax going forward a way to dedicate streams of revenue specifically to what we call core functions of government, like at MDOT for our maintenance program and our capacities, because that is a real issue for us. Is it's taken, we've had some extra money the last few years, so we have really beefed up our capacity projects, but we still have this problem with maintenance. It takes a lot of money to maintain roads and repave them and that sort of thing. And our 87 highway program did a great job of building them, but there wasn't a lot of forethought about long-term maintenance, and those things are coming back around. So, yes, grocery tax reduction or elimination will be part of it.
Okay.
We're for it. As you know, it's a double hit because we've got to make our cities whole. That's how they fund their local governments. So that's a tricky equation always.
If you can hang around, we'll dig into some other issues going on in the House. Final thing I'll say about that is that may make it more difficult also to, of course, eliminate the income tax.
That's correct.
Yeah. So
yep.
You
Every dollar
that.
you do over there trades off against the other. That's right.
We've got Speaker of the House Jason White in the Element Wealth studio. We're coming right back. We're visiting with Speaker of the House Jason White in the Element Wealth studio. So we were just talking about tax reform and the possibility of further efforts to reduce or eliminate the income tax. You know, the governor has made that a high priority. And I just want to share this with you. I actually like the very first bill, to be honest with you, that came out of the House. I liked it. And I do know that, and that was like, let's get rid of the income tax in a very short period of time. And to offset that, we had some adjustments upward on sales tax. And, man, everybody came out of the woodwork to complain about that.
They did. They did, Gerard. And, look, we put a lot of thought and brought in some smart people and asked folks, if you were starting from scratch, how would you do that and fund government at this level? And the consumption tax, you know, is the way to go.
Sure.
And so you would never build it the way where we are.
And unfortunately, through the years, we've had all these concessions we've made, as you know, through all the special interests that said, well, I need to have mine, and that's fine, but that's on the books.
But that special interest argument that it created these sales tax carve-outs, if you will, to where they get a reduced rate, illustrates the point of this. If you want more of something, you tax it less.
Right.
All right, well, we want more productivity. We want people to work and make their living and invest in Mississippi. Let's tax it less.
I completely agree.
So you know, the very thing that, we have this. This is how we run our business with this break on the sales tax on this particular item that we make or sell.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hear you, but it demonstrates, I think, the converse or our point, which is let's try to tax work less.
I agree.
And productivity.
I totally agree. All right, let's pivot to education freedom, school choice, something that has been, as you know, talked about, circulated inside the dome quite a bit through the years. We have some degree of school choice in the state of Mississippi, but we don't have universal school choice, and there are a lot of folks that like to see us expand those options even more. What do you think's going on there?
Well, to your point, you know, we do have some school choice in Mississippi, but here's the thing: everybody says, you know, we want some unity and a level playing field when it comes to educational opportunities. Well, we have choice, but we don't have that. Yeah. Folks that have plenty of money and make really good livings, they have choice.
Yeah,
they just write a check for it,
or they're mobile,
and again, usually through some level of affluence that allows them to pick up their whole family, sell the house, farm, whatever, and go to that.
Yeah.
All right. We're more of a mobile society anyway, so people are willing to drive certain distances for certain things, whether it's to see a movie or groceries or school, for their kids' education. We are, the floor for us this year in the House is to remove the restriction of local school boards to be able to deny a release. In other words, this idea of portability. In other words, if you are a public school student in Mississippi and you desire to be released from your home district, we want you to have that. If the parents request that, they should be released. Now, where they're going to be accepted is a different deal. We're not ready today to force them on another school district, be it public or private. We're figuring that part out. But the floor for us now is we're to a place in the House where we want every student to have the ability to be released from their public school district, whether that local school board wants them released or not.
So
we think that's a vital first step.
Of public to public?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, that's available today, but it's an act of Congress to get it.
It's an act of Congress. And I'm not blaming those school boards. They've got a captive customer there. They want to keep the money, and so they're not going to release them, except in very, very rare instances. So we want to remove that right off the front, where all you do is check the box that you are releasing because you're going to a different school district. And now you will have to see the receiving school district and convince them that they should take you, that you're the viable student and good student, and here's my transcript and all those things. So we don't have all of that worked out yet.
Okay.
Arkansas, as you know, did a scaled-in approach where it was the first folks eligible in the first years. It's based on income, household income, and some other things, and it was a cap. It was a cap.
Disabilities, I think.
Disabilities, yeah. Well, we've got some of that already.
Yeah, we already have that
with our ESAs. So We want to build on that and not totally start over. We just want to build on it and not require the release that we currently require and phase it in. We're not looking to, just, it's kind of like CON. We want to do some stuff with our certificate of need laws, but we don't want to just pull the plug on it today. We want to do it measured and smart and right where it's fair to the industry. Same way here. We want schools to be able to adjust because there is no denying what folks call the Mississippi miracle, some gains we've had in public education in Mississippi. We don't want to do one thing that's going to disturb that or disturb that momentum that they've got. They've done great things. We just want all our students to have great choices when it comes to their child's education.
Okay.
And I said this, I got in a little trouble, but in my acceptance speech to the House the day we were all sworn in, I reminded everybody of this. We trust these parents to make every other decision in this child's life. We don't get involved in that in Mississippi if you take them to church or if you don't take them to church. If you make them do right or if you don't make them do right. That's your business as a parent. With very few exceptions, we don't get involved in that. Why would we not let them make the choice about what's best for their child? And I reminded everybody, almost every one of those parents is a taxpayer. They're paying the bill. It's not the state's money. It's their money. And so to me, we overcomplicate it from the standpoint of, they're moving the pieces. It's their money to begin with.
The objection you hear a lot is that, okay, well, if we allowed that public-to-public transfer, it could overwhelm a high-performing district if they're adjacent to a low-performing district. And so we've got to have some sort of reasonable guardrails around that, do we not?
And for me right now, again, the floor would be they've got to gain acceptance, period. You can't make anybody take you just because you've got the ESA voucher. All right. That's the floor.
Okay.
I'm saying there's a sweet spot somewhere in the middle where each school board could say, okay, with our long-range planning, we can accept 50 new students this year or 100.
That's how Florida does it, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
It's capacity-based.
And again, we're not reinventing the wheel.
That's exactly right.
Other states are doing this very well. And I would just, for the listeners out there, red and blue states are doing this very well. It's not... We've made it a partisan issue. It's really not a partisan issue around the country. This is about parents and what's best for their kids.
All right.
Hey, let me say this too, Gerard.
Yeah, sure.
My mom taught English in public school in Mississippi for 34 years. I went to public school for 7 of my 12 years. I went to private school for 5 years. I hear people say public school is better because of this, private school is better because of this. I tend to agree with both of them. There are attributes to both.
Sure.
My point is, let's let parents decide what's best for their kids because both of them have great, depending on the student and needs and parents and location, best choices are different around the state. Let's give them the opportunity to make those choices. And again, I get it. I mean, I rode a big yellow dog school bus. 378 was the number in Kosciuszko to first grade. I get it. So I don't need anybody telling me that I don't understand public school. I've been involved in them. My mom was in them for 35 years. My sister is a elementary principal in the public school system in Kosciuszko now. They fight the good fight. This isn't about throwing shade on anything they're doing. It's about we can support them fully, and I think we've done a better job the last few years of paying them and trying to get more out of the way from the testing standpoint, and we're going to continue to work on that. But it's also about our parents, and I think they know best for their kids.
Yeah. What about the public to private ESA, Mr. Speaker? Where do you stand on that?
I think we eventually get there.
Okay.
And here's why I think we get there. Because voters and parents are demanding it. Taxpayers are demanding it. Now, again, it's kind of like our income tax structure. We funded state government partly on personal income tax. Even though you and I liked that first play in the House, we saw folks got really nervous and scared when we just totally pull the plug.
Yep.
We don't want to do that with this. So we're willing to take baby steps and get there over. Now, I want it to be a defined amount of time. Let's figure out what that is and have a goal. But I think we get there just because, again, I think if politicians are nothing, they're self-preservationists. And their voters are starting to demand it. Yeah. So I think you see the tide turn with that. Well,
seems to be there's a little less favorable view in the Senate than I think there is in the House. So we've got.
Hey, let me throw this stat out there. In Arizona, where they have universal school choice, the take rate is still under 10%.
Yeah,
folks prefer their local public school in their community. Yeah. This isn't about destroying that.
Can you hang around?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we got Speaker of the House Jason White in the Element Wealth studio. When we come back, I'm going to get your thoughts on my favorite subjects, PERS and healthcare. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio. Tequila. By the way, I like to play golf out at the TPC in Phoenix. Fantastic course. That's where they have the Phoenix Open, and they've got this great kind of upscale Mexican restaurant there in the clubhouse. And they always have these very attractive young ladies that have what do you call the things that cross you that they used to hold bullets? I can't remember what they call bandoleros. Yeah. Well, she's got shot glasses, by the way, for tequila, and her name is Sheila Tequila. True story. So we're visiting with I digress, but
all that for your golf game.
Exactly. Right? It's Friday, so we're just having a little fun. We are talking to Speaker of the House, I should say, Jason White in the Element Wealth studio. So we've covered lots of the issues. You touched on the Certificate of Need laws a little bit. That's something that many of us have been trying to repeal in the state of Mississippi for some time. You just said something to me that made sense, which is maybe we ought to just see if we can get something phased in to get something going and some traction there.
I think that's a way to get buy-in from our providers. Otherwise, they're just going to be a hard stop. And that doesn't mean we still won't do something, but it makes it a whole lot harder because, folks, our providers are some of the largest employers in the state. It's a huge economy in our state. Folks still love and respect their local doctor and listen to them. And so they carry great sway, in political circles. And so that's going to always bleed into the argument. But there's no denying that access is an issue in Mississippi. Now, what role CON has played in that, some folks that are proponents will tell you that's actually saved it or insured it. Now, those are tough arguments to make. But I do understand some of where they're coming from. But again, it's like our tax structure. We set up on personal income tax, and so it's going to take us a little bit if we're going to get away from that. I think it's the same way in the Certificate of Need world. Folks have invested, in some cases, life savings or made generational investments in things based on our current structure. I'm not looking to pull the rug out from under those people, but I do want to start the clock toward a future where we get away from that and it gets more about it's consumer driven, and I know healthcare is going to always have a governmental aspect to it. And as I've been involved in state government, it would probably turn a lot of folks' stomachs to really find out how much government is involved in the healthcare piece, because it is
big time.
It's big time.
Yeah.
It's big business. And lots of money. And I tell folks this, I went to my first Medicaid committee meeting 12 years ago in the legislature, and, you think about Medicaid, that's not a sexy topic, and this will probably be boring, but my wife's in the healthcare field, and she thought I should be involved. I get to that meeting, and I'd been to all my other meetings, transportation and the different, wildlife, the things that all of us good Mississippi boys want to be involved in. I get to Medicaid, and it's standing room only. Every lobbyist in the Capitol is in that meeting. It's not enough chairs. I'm like, what in the world? And we weren't even debating a bill that day. We were just forming the committee. It opened my eyes to the fact of just how much healthcare touches, in some way, everybody's lives. And here in Mississippi, it touches all Mississippians.
Well, as you know, with respect to Medicaid, and many of our audience may not know, the total cost of operating the Medicaid program in the state of Mississippi, combined federal and state cost, exceeds the general fund budget.
That's exactly right. And among state dollars spent, it is second in our budget pie,
Number 2,
only to K-12.
Education.
Yep, that's right.
Runs around $1 billion a year.
That's right.
It's increased dramatically, as you know.
It has. My first year, 12 years ago, here the Medicaid budget was $523 million.
Yeah.
And we're almost $1 billion.
We've almost doubled it.
That's right.
And so has the FMAP, the federal's portion as well.
That's right.
And we in Mississippi, because of our low per capita income, which is what the federal match is based on, we get the highest percentage of total Medicaid cost of any of the 50 states, sitting around 78% now these days. So, yeah, and I'm just thinking out loud, that's probably why the room was full, because there's $6.5–7 billion at stake there.
There you go.
And
I was just naive and didn't know. I figured it out pretty quick. It takes me a minute, but when I catch on, I catch on. But yeah,
some roughly 800,000 now in the Medicaid program without expansion.
That's right.
In the state of Mississippi, in the coverage groups.
As we've already talked about, there's only 2.9 million people here.
So, it's unbelievable.
So you're talking about 1 in 4. I tell people if you're at a 4-way stop, somebody's on Medicaid. If everybody's at stop sign, somebody's on Medicaid of some sort. And of course, they have a heavy presence in the long-term care world, as well as with our aged and disabled, as well as our kids,
which is in the formers where most of the money goes.
That's right.
It obviously doesn't go to the kids.
It's very expensive. Yeah, that long-term care and our
extremely
aged
expensive.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, and that's nationwide, by the way. It's not unique to the state of Mississippi.
That's right.
But and so I know that you're familiar with the article that I've authored to just kind of address the subject. And one of the things I pointed out, and I think you agree with this as well, is that it seems like every time we have the discussion about addressing health care in the state of Mississippi, it always kind of devolves down to, yes, expand Medicaid or not. And it's way bigger than just that.
Way bigger than that. It really is. It really is. And now that, let me say this, just by me as a potential Republican leader at the time being willing to say, we're going to have a real robust conversation, and because I'm tired of hearing, y'all won't even talk about it. Y'all won't even really look at the facts. I said, we're fixing to have a real discussion about it. And so it brought people to the table who really aren't for traditional Medicaid expansion, but they've said, well, I didn't feel comfortable talking about this, but you can do this on the exchange, or you can do this with some copays. Like, where all of a sudden some really smart people are coming out of the woodwork to say, hey, if you got 30 minutes, I want to run something by you. And everybody's got their angle depending on what industry they're in. But at the same time, we're kind of starting to see a little bit of a coalescence of ideas that also have a Mississippi business aspect to it, in that businesses and folks that are running either small businesses or folks that are running our huge corporations in the state, they're interested in this because they see the health being driving such a large part of the economic factor and the conditions of our state. Our work participation, our labor participation rate is about 50%, give or take. It's dismal.
Lowest in the country.
So for these working folks that aren't covered, I'm very interested in trying to find a way for those folks to have health insurance. If nothing else, call it an incentive to work. You might say, well, the pay's not that great, but hey, there is a way to have some health insurance that comes along with it. And so,
I agree.
To me, that's another added bonus feature. Keeps those folks in the workforce and out of the emergency rooms.
No doubt. Well, it's something I suggest in the article is if we could figure out a way to get those folks enrolled in the exchanges now where their premiums are zero, they still had an out-of-pocket cost, but it's limited to $3,150. If we can figure out a way to maybe cover some of that.
Look, it's limited, and there may be a way for employers where because again, we're talking about able-bodied folks that are going to work. There may be a way on those copays for businesses to help with that and get a tax credit on the backside. Like, there are lots of things we could do. So it's just been interesting to me that providers and Mississippi businesses have come forward and said, we want a seat at the table, and we've got some ideas, and here are our concerns.
Right.
So we're going to see where we can get with it.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I couldn't agree more that this is an issue. You can't just have a meeting down there at the Capitol in a committee room and really address it as robustly as you could if you could assemble a brain trust, as you've talked about, from the private sector as well.
Right. I want to stress that the most. These solutions will come from the private sector.
Good.
They have to.
I totally agree.
They're the folks, if there is any government involvement, they're the folks that are going to pay the bill. So
it's true.
I want them to say how they want this thing to look. And the answer, this has never been about covering able-bodied adults who aren't working. This is we're talking about strictly about the population that is working.
Yeah.
Finding a way for employers to either help cover them or finding a way with some combination of public-private partnership to get them some coverage.
Well, the challenge is, as you well know, you made a statement when we started talking about this subject that there's a lot more government involvement than people realize. You can look no further than the EMTALA law passed in 1986. We talked about it quite a bit. And the bottom line is, if somebody shows up at an ER, the hospital is going to have to take care of them, whether they pay or not, and they end up absorbing those costs, is what's happening now.
That's right. They absorb them, and then folks, whether they admit it or know it or not, those of us that are paying
It's baked in.
It's baked in. It's baked in.
We're paying for it indirectly, essentially.
That's right.
So it's a lot of times before we go here, you hear people saying, well, this is just more welfare. Actually, it's welfare that goes to the hospitals that are having to cover these people and take care of them. It's not a check we write. to the individuals. But I applaud you for at least getting this discussion stimulated and sort of thinking out of the box, which is what we got to do.
It's kind of the last piece for us. Our economy's coming together. We're a right-to-work state. We've got a lot of good things going. Our tax structure's gotten so much better. We need to fix this healthcare piece.
I agree. And involving the private sector. All for it. We appreciate it, Mr. Speaker.
Thank
Jason
you for your
Walker.
time.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoyed it.
Coming right back with the final segment of Middays. Stay with us.